In the plan, Malaysia needs to grow 6% on average per annum and attract some over $140 billion of investment to fund all these projects to fuel growth. Do you think that's a tall order?
6% by itself, the country has done it before. You know, in the 70s, 80s, we were doing 7 to 9% at a period of time. And considering the resources that we have in this country, natural resources, and the population, and a relatively young population, any reduction in that growth rate is not the result of external factors, but more our own doing. In other words, here we have an opportunity in this country to really unleash the growth. But unfortunately, we are still being hamstrung by some policies in which I think the new economic model have identified. And I think the moment you begin to unleash it, you will see that 6% is certainly achievable. And in terms of whether it's 145 billion or in terms of the investments needed, we know you compare even in Southeast Asia, Singapore has been attracting FDIs 2 to 3 times that of Malaysia. Now, what are the circumstances, which allows that? And some of this must point to the liberalization of some of our investment rules. For example, Prime Minister Najib has announced that 27 subsectors in the services will be liberalized with no equity conditions. For example, in the services sector, only 11% are foreign investment. Compared to in the manufacturing sector, it's always about 50 to 60%. So that means a tremendous scope that foreign investors could play in a more liberalized services sector.
But the decades-old affirmative action policies, are these policies holding back the country?
There are 2 forms of affirmative action. I think affirmative action to help, for example, as stated at NEM, the bottom 40% of the population, regardless of race. By all means, who can disagree with something like this? We have certain social policies. It is the other type of affirmative actions which have been misunderstood. For example, 30% in economy. When the NEP was started in 1970, it just said 30% of the businesses of all sizes should be run by Bumiputras in 20 years. It's a perfectly fair aspiration. But unfortunately, it's been misinterpreted to say 30% in individual companies. Now, that is where I think the policy was shall we say, gone by the wayside. But of course, it's now been realized and it's been pulled back. For example, in the manufacturing sector, this no longer applies. The focus then should be help those who are lagging behind. How do we help them to set up their own company rather than having 30% in every company, which doesn't make sense to anybody,